Greetings. So, hopefully, everyone is doing well and continuing to put on, adjust, and refine our thinking caps, our discernment, and our critical thinking. I don't come often on this channel. At this point, there is so much information that is out on the internet about cults. There are a lot of things that I have mentioned before that I don't think many people could comprehend or understand, especially if folks don't have themselves a personal experience with cults. So people wouldn't have a frame of reference for a lot of the nuances and the distinctions that make a cult different from, let's say, perhaps a church or organization where you can get up, quite often leave and go home and come back perhaps once a week or whenever you feel like it. And although you're putting money in the collection plates, you still have the ability to go home. So there are definitely by now can be seen some distinctions with cults. A lot of the internet audience, uh, many are entertained and have been entertained by looking at the lives of different people, almost like a soap opera online, and may perhaps not be seeing the patterns that many of the patterns that exist in these cults. They can look around uh, within the United States or in their own neighborhood or families and maybe in their personal lives and see some of these patterns. So, currently on this channel, where more information will be posted is in the community section. So currently, for example, there are even more cults that have come out. And I said this from the very beginning that there are so many cults. Now it can be seen from every type of orientation, religion, color, not limited to the vanilla or the chocolate communities. So many different pieces of the puzzle for people to educate themselves and get familiar with the patterns and the nuances. A lot of what people think they're looking at from one dimension from these boxes and screens, there's so much that cannot be perceived from the limited perspective of a screen. For example, quite often cults and cult leaders, they are and manipulators are extremely savvy. And in particular, when you are overseas, they know how to position themselves. This could amount to taking pictures and photos with key people, whether that's politicians, entertainers, so called number one award winning shows, which were, if you had been in the country, you would see it's just something that almost looks like a dilapidated building. So, what we would call a number one award winning radio show or touting awards or, just all these things, crafting a narrative and painting a picture that people in another country, and particularly in the States, have no idea of the narrative that's being created. So, it's very easy to give the cult or the cult leader cover or validity through taking pictures with key people or sending representatives out to shake the hands of key people or perhaps do a radio show. This all goes a long way in crafting a narrative where folks are perhaps shaking hands. And unfortunately, because many folks are so identified, and it's understandable, with a father figure or something that represents, so it can be identified as our culture or celebrity or looks, the critical thinking will be suspended and folks won't delve any further to do a cross referencing or a thorough background check on these characters because they are saying very triggering rhetoric and language that makes us feel good or makes us feel away or something that we can resonate with. A term that's often used on the internet is quote unquote knowledge. When eating fruits and vegetables, exercising, sunshine. These are very, very basic things. So I invite folks to consider, what is the undertone? What is missing? Why are we so drawn into these personality types? And it's often because they are triggering a lot of trauma, a lot of longing perhaps for mothers or father figures, or as grown adults. Um, the lack of parenting, some folks still wanting to have that experience of a father figure. So that desire and the trauma, when it's triggered, it can block out, and likely will block out, all logical common sense, and definitely will have people totally suspend a vetting process. You could come online with red, gold, and green, or use the word vegan, or say brother and sister, and folks right there won't do any background checks. And it's unfortunate. So it doesn't feel good to have to admit that all communities have some type of, at this point, unfortunately, human trafficking, um, sex trafficking. I would dare say that many of the women may not realize that they, and perhaps their children, or if they're pregnant, will be used as a beard to deflect from the human trafficking and trafficking for other purposes that is happening. And some of the videos that people are watching from the States, while you're looking at these rituals and these parades or the fanfare, and we want to identify with the glory of our past or our culture, you sometimes have no real you don't realize what you're looking at. You have no idea if you're looking at a young woman who has been manipulated and is about to be groomed to be in a relationship, basically with an older man, much older, 40 years, sometimes her senior, when that young woman perhaps was looking for help, or maybe her parents were looking for some help or some guidance. So there's a lot of manipulation and things that we cannot see through these screens. So, again, at this point, information for the purpose of educating and getting familiar with the patterns and the nuances of cults, especially if one has not participated in a cult personally, or have a personal frame of reference, and perhaps is yelling at the screen, why don't you just, or it seems so simple. Information and research will be placed inside of the community section of this page. So I'm inviting you all to keep your thinking caps on, and to put discernment and a vetting process, a thorough vetting process, perhaps pressing pause on our likes and our dislikes, because people that you like, old people, so-called elders, can be quite capable of scamming, human trafficking, manipulation, scanning folks for their insecurities, women for their insecurities, vulnerabilities, as well as men and young men. We may like to think that it's impossible for us to get scammed, but it is possible, because all people have insecurities, and at this time, many people, if not most, have some type of trauma that will and can be exploited. So keep your thinking caps on. There will be information in the community section. Okay, be well.